Going to the Playboy Mansion and some of those things that like you wouldn't necessarily think they would touch on, and they do.
Yeah.
So far I've enjoyed it, and I think if you're a Laker fan, I think you're going to love it. But even if you're a basketball fan and just the palace intrigue of the Lakers and all the stars that they've had and everything, like I think it's going to be an interesting doc.
When you threw out like the whole Kyrie thing still, do you think that's not completely dead? Like that's still very much up in the air? Is it just waiting until what happens with Kevin Durant? You can't really do anything because it's like one of those things where Kyrie can't move until KD moves. Is that kind of where you're at with this?
Yeah. I think, I mean, that's been the sense I've gotten really the whole time, is that KD is the first domino. And because I think there's been a lot of conflicting intel with this whole situation. And, on one side, you've kind of heard, oh, well, the Nets want to remain competitive and like they don't have their picks. And, they didn't, if you look at a lot of their moves this offseason, Royce O'Neal, TJ Warren, re-signing some of those guys, like those are win now moves. Those are not we're rebuilding and going in a different direction moves. So right. I think a lot of the signs have pointed to that. But on the other side, like as my colleague John Hollinger wrote yesterday, like they actually do have some incentive to tank if this implodes, which it really is imploding, because they actually do have their pick. Next season's pick is a pick swap with the Rockets, depending on which one is worse. Most likely the Rockets will be worse. Who knows? Maybe Brooklyn, if they bottom out, end up being worse than the Rockets. But like either way, you're getting, if you are tanking, probably a top 5, top 7 pick in the 2023 draft. So I think there actually is a path for Brooklyn to really just clean house and maybe keep Ben Simmons and trade KD and Kyrie and say, hey, we're going in a different direction, younger guys. Ben Simmons is one of our foundational pieces. Let's get a lottery pick in 2023 and let's, kind of rebuild this culture here. So in that case, I think it obviously makes sense to trade Kyrie. I don't see the reason to keep him if they're trying to remain competitive, and they are looking at a Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart type package of, can we get another all-star and another quality starter? Then it makes more sense to me. Okay, keep Kyrie. Now we're going with Kyrie, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, and like Nick Claxton or a center or something. So I think it really depends on the KD package will inform what happens with Kyrie, because again, if they're trying to remain competitive, it makes some sense to keep Kyrie, have him be your number 1 or 2, and go that route. But if they are just cleaning house, rebuilding, I think Kyrie would have to follow. And based on what he has put out there, and sort of just the landscape of the league, there might be a dark horse or two that enter the mix, but I really think the Lakers are the strong favorites, and they're kind of betting or bidding against themselves. And it's just a matter of, okay, they probably have to give up a couple picks, but Russ plus a couple picks, maybe Taylor Horton-Tucker or Kendrick Nunn, and then get Kyrie and a Nets role player and call it a day.
Do you think over the meeting from a couple days ago between Rob and LeBron that was brought up, of just like LeBron was looking at the roster, and I think he mentioned that just the struggles and feeling like they did not have a great chance to win a lot of nights last season, and when you saw the rotation and what LeBron was having to deal with for most of the season, and as you watching every game, I would assume side with LeBron on this. But do you think that's something that comes up with him and with Rob, where it's like, hey, like privately, this is not going to get out publicly, but privately, we understand that Russell Westbrook is not going to flip the script and he's not going to be Drew Holiday for us next year. And that, as great of a coach as Darvin Ham might be, that's just asking too much out of Darvin Ham to flip this guy who's been in the league for as long as Russell Westbrook has to play an entirely different way. That's just not a realistic proposition for him, and nor is it, I think fair. But do you think that's something that you talk about where you're like, hey, KD's probably going to get moved soon, and when he does, that's when the Kyrie, and it's really us. Like there's not a lot of options around the league for Kyrie. We're sitting there. are you good with a reunion? Do you think that's enough? Do you want to go down that path? Do you think that was discussed?
Yes.
Okay.
I think all the parties are aware of the options and the different directions they can go in. I think it's one of those situations too where like everybody wants to keep their hands clean, because I think there was a lot of finger pointing with the Russell Westbrook situation, and a lot of that ended up coming on LeBron and AD and Clutch, and sort of, that they were the ones that really wanted Russ more so than the rest of the front office. So I do think this is one of those situations where optics matter, and everyone is trying to kind of keep their side of the street clean, and I think everybody wants the same thing. It's just kind of how they're going about it, and really trying to make not leave any traces of a footprint of this person really pushed for this. I'm sure if the deal happens, it'll come out kind of what the parties wanted and who was pushing for what. But I do think I think LeBron is very conscious of his image, and sort of that he kind of has this reputation for, if he doesn't like a coach or if he doesn't like a star teammate, just replace him, or lead GM and all the stuff that he kind of gets nicknamed with. So I think he's trying to kind of operate in the right way, and I think so too are the Lakers. And again, I've been saying this for a while now, but it's in the Lakers' best interest to operate as if Russ is coming back, because there's really no upside to them publicly being like, we don't want Russ, he's not a part of this, we're trying to trade him. That just takes away their leverage in talks. And I think there's really been a groundswell of, we're keeping Russ, he's our third guy, we're going to make it work. And a lot of similar talk to last offseason when they acquired him. But I think give anybody truth serum there, and it's like, they know he's not going to change. And I mean, there's also just a limitation to how much he can change, right? It's hard for a player who's played a certain way for 14 years to change in year 15. And if Russ's jumper was going to come, it would have happened already, right? It just hasn't developed. And, if anything, it's regressed. And so I think, maybe there's ways to use him more effectively off the ball. Maybe there's ways to get him to buy in more, but why was he not doing that last season? And that's my thing, because I think sometimes Russ gets too much of the blame, where everyone's, all of last season was Russ's fault, blah, blah, blah. But then I think there's some people that are Russ defenders that will just say, we'll kind of make every other excuse of, Frank Vogel or the injuries or LeBron or this or that. And I'm like, well, where's the accountability from Russ of him making changes? The only change you can really say he made was he had the ball in his hands less, but that's the minimum change you make when you join a star trio. But what actual changes did Russ make to his game to accommodate LeBron and AD? AD played the second most center of his career and the most in LA last season. And that was part of one of the adjustments that they had talked about going into the season, was because of the spacing issues of having Russ at point guard, you can't really play a traditional center and AD and Russ. So AD's like, I'm going to play more center. AD did that. LeBron also played more center. LeBron played a lot of center last year. And LeBron was willing to kind of cede the ball to Russ at times. So I think those two guys made much more, many more sacrifices than Russ did. He did not hold up his end of the bargain. And even if it's one thing to underperform, but he underperformed and also did not make the changes he said he was going to make, didn't even really try to make those changes. So I think the writing is on the wall. It's just a matter of, when do the Lakers execute a trade? I think they can get it done. They're probably gonna have to give up 2 picks. That's gonna most likely be the price that it costs to trade Russ. But I think right now it's a big game of chicken. Everybody's kind of waiting it out to see, what's the best move. What is the least amount we can give up to get something else. But I think you're gonna see it kind of ramp back up towards training camp in late September, when I think these talks are going to start to heighten.
Interesting. And I also just wonder, do you think coming out of that meeting, do you think LeBron's committed to retiring a Laker? Is that now done? Do you think he's feeling good and that we should see an extension coming soon for LeBron?
No.